The morning alarm echoed through the metal halls of New Horizon Mining Station. Sarah Chen opened her eyes and looked at the time display on her wall. Another day in the asteroid belt, another day of mining operations that kept Earth's colonies running. Sarah rolled out of her small bunk and put on her uniform. As commander of New Horizon, she had 847 people depending on her. They were not soldiers. They were miners, engineers, scientists, and their families who had come to this remote corner of space to build something better. The station floated in the middle of an asteroid field, around a distant star called Kepler 442. The rocks here were full of rare metals that Earth needed for its growing space fleet. New Horizon had been operating for 3 years now, and it felt like home to most of the people living there. Sarah walked to the command center where Lieutenant Jake Morrison was finishing his night shift. Jake was young but smart, and Sarah trusted him to keep watch when she slept. "Good morning, Commander," Jake said. "All quiet during the night. Mining teams are ready to start work in Sector 7. Sarah nodded and poured herself a cup of coffee from the machine. Real coffee was expensive out here. But she believed her people deserved small comforts. "Any word from Earth Command about the Zelkari situation?" Jake's face darkened. "Nothing new. Same message as yesterday. They are reviewing the situation and will respond when appropriate." Sarah frowned. The Zelkari had been making threats for weeks now. They claimed that humans did not belong in this part of space. They said humans were new to the galaxy and did not understand proper rules. According to them, this asteroid field belonged to the Zelkari Consortium, even though human ships had found it first and claimed it legally. The Zelkari were not the strongest alien race in the galaxy, but they had been trading between stars for over 1,000 years. They thought this gave them the right to tell newer species where they could and could not go. Most aliens seemed to agree with them. "Commander Chen, please report to communications," a voice said over the station speakers. Sarah finished her coffee and walked to the communications room. Petty Officer Lisa Park was waiting for her with a worried expression. "We have an incoming message from a Zelkari ship," Lisa said. "They want to talk to you directly." Sarah sat in the communication chair and activated the screen. The face of a Zelkari appeared in front of her. The alien looked like a tall lizard with smooth blue skin and large yellow eyes. Sarah recognized him from previous messages. His name was Trade Minister Veltar. "Human Commander," Veltar said in accented English. "I bring you a final message from the Zelkari Consortium." "I'm listening," Sarah replied. "You have 30 standard days to remove all human presence from this system. If you do not leave, we will take appropriate action to protect Zelkari interests in this region." Sarah kept her face calm, but inside she was angry. Trade Minister. This system was legally claimed by Earth under Galactic Treaty 2-7. "We have followed all proper procedures. We have rights here." Veltar's eyes narrowed. "Rights? You speak of rights? Humans have been in space for less than 200 years. The Zelkari have traded these routes for 10 times longer. You are children playing with tools you do not understand." "That may be true," Sarah said. "But the law is the law. We will not abandon our legal operation based on threats." "Then you choose the consequences," Veltar said. 30 days, human. Do not say you were not warned." The screen went dark. Sarah sat in silence for a moment. Lisa looked at her with concern. "Should I send another message to Earth Command?" Lisa asked. "Yes," Sarah said. "Mark it urgent priority. Include everything we just recorded." Sarah left the communications room and walked to the observation deck. Through the large windows, she could see the asteroid field stretching out in all directions. Mining ships moved between the rocks like busy insects. In the distance, she could see the lights of the family quarters, where children were probably getting ready for school. Dr. Emily Watson joined Sarah at the window. Emily was the station's chief medical officer and Sarah's closest friend on New Horizon. "You look troubled," Emily said. "The Zelkari just gave us 30 days to leave," Sarah replied. Emily was quiet for a moment. "What will you do?" "My job," Sarah said. "Protect the people on this station and follow Earth's orders." "But Earth Command seems more interested in paperwork than in protecting its citizens. Maybe they know something we don't," Emily suggested. Sarah shook her head. Or maybe they think this is just a small problem that will go away by itself. They don't understand what we're dealing with out here. The two women watched as a group of children ran through the corridor outside the observation deck. They were laughing and playing games, completely unaware of any danger. Some of them had been born on New Horizon. This was the only home they had ever known. "I won't let anything happen to them," Sarah said quietly. "I know you won't," Emily replied. That evening, Sarah called a meeting of her senior staff. Besides Jake and Emily, there was Chief Engineer Tom Bradley, Security Chief Captain Mark Stevens, and Mining Supervisor Ana Rodriguez. They met in the conference room next to Sarah's office. "I want everyone to know about the Zelkari threat," Sarah began. She told them about the 30-day deadline and Earth Command's lack of response. Captain Stevens spoke first. "How many Marines do we have?" 23, Sarah replied. "Against whatever the Zelkari might send." "Our weapons?" Stevens asked. "One defense platform with standard pulse cannons. 6 patrol ships with light armament. This station was built for mining, not fighting." Tom Bradley leaned forward. "What about evacuation procedures?" "We have enough emergency pods for everyone," Sarah said. "But if the Zelkari bring a real fleet, I don't know how many pods would make it to safety." Ana Rodriguez looked angry. "So we just wait? Hope they don't really attack civilians?" "We prepare for the worst and hope for the best," Sarah said. "I want all evacuation procedures reviewed. I want our defense systems checked and upgraded where possible. And I want everyone trained on emergency protocols without causing panic among the families." The meeting lasted 2 hours. When it ended, Sarah felt slightly better about their chances, but she knew the truth. If the Zelkari really wanted to destroy New Horizon, there was little her small security force could do to stop them. That night, Sarah lay in her bunk thinking about Earth and the bureaucrats who were probably filing her urgent reports in some computer system. She thought about the children on the station and their parents who had come here to build better lives. She made a promise to herself. Whatever happened in the next 30 days, she would not let her people down. Even if Earth Command had forgotten about them, she would remember her duty. Outside her small window, the stars looked cold and distant. Somewhere among them, Zelkari ships were probably already moving toward New Horizon. Sarah closed her eyes and tried to sleep, knowing that peaceful nights like this were becoming rare. 28 days had passed since the Zelkari ultimatum. Sarah Chen stood in the command center, watching the sensor screens with growing worry. Her communications officer had been trying to reach Earth Command for hours, but the quantum relay was experiencing delays. "Commander," Lieutenant Morrison called from his station. "I'm picking up multiple contacts approaching from Sector 12. Sarah moved to the sensor display. 12 large ships were moving toward New Horizon at attack speed. The computer identified them as Zelkari heavy cruisers, each one bigger and more powerful than anything humanity had in this part of space. "Sound general quarters," Sarah ordered. "All civilian personnel to emergency stations. Military personnel to defensive positions." Alarms began ringing throughout the station. Sarah watched the displays as families hurried to emergency shelters and her small security team rushed to their battle stations. Everyone had practiced this drill many times. But now it was real. The Zelkari fleet stopped just outside weapon range. A few minutes later, Sarah's communication system activated. The face of Overlord Thexkar appeared on the main screen. He was older than Trade Minister Veltar, with darker blue skin and scars across his face. This was not a diplomat. This was a soldier. "Human Commander," Thexkar said in a deep voice. "I am Overlord Thexkar of the Zelkari Naval Command. Your 30 days have expired." "Overlord," Sarah replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "This is Commander Sarah Chen of the New Horizon Mining Station. This territory was legally claimed under Galactic Treaty 2-7. We have the right to be here." Thexkar's eyes showed no emotion. "Rights are earned through strength, human. Your kind is weak. You send miners and families to claim what belongs to stronger races. This shows disrespect." "We are not soldiers," Sarah said. "We are civilians conducting legal mining operations. We have children on this station. Then you should have thought of their safety before defying the consortium, Thexkar replied. I offer you one final chance. Surrender immediately and prepare for evacuation to human space. You have 10 minutes. Sarah looked around the command center. Her staff was watching her, waiting for orders. Through the windows, she could see the civilian quarters, where hundreds of families were hiding in emergency shelters. Some of those children had been born on New Horizon. This was their home. Overlord Thexkar, Sarah said clearly. We will not abandon our lawful operation. This is human territory, and we will defend it. Thexkar nodded slowly. Then you have chosen death. Let this be a lesson to all humans about the price of challenging established powers. The communication ended. Sarah immediately activated the station-wide emergency broadcast. This is Commander Chen. All personnel, prepare for immediate evacuation. Emergency pods are to launch in sequence as practiced. This is not a drill. Captain Stevens appeared on her screen from the defense platform. Commander, should we engage? Sarah looked at the tactical display. 12 heavy cruisers against 1 small defense platform and 6 patrol ships. It would be over in minutes. But maybe they could buy time for the evacuation. Engage when ready, Captain. Make them pay for every shot. The attack began without warning. Zelkari ships opened fire on the defense platform with energy weapons that lit up space like artificial suns. Captain Stevens and his team fought back bravely, but their small guns barely damaged the enemy ships. The defense platform lasted 4 minutes before a Zelkari torpedo broke it apart. Sarah watched the explosion and knew that 20 good people had just died. Emergency pods launching, Lieutenant Morrison reported. First wave away safely, but the Zelkari were not finished. Instead of accepting the evacuation, their ships moved to attack positions around New Horizon itself. They're targeting the civilian areas, Morrison said with horror. Sarah watched in disbelief as Zelkari weapons began hitting the family quarters and school sections. The alien ships were deliberately hunting emergency pods as they launched. This was not a military operation. This was murder. Launch all remaining pods immediately, Sarah ordered. Scatter pattern. Maybe some will get away. The next 20 minutes were the longest of Sarah's life. She watched as pod after pod was destroyed by Zelkari fighters. Families she had known for years were dying in space, victims of weapons designed for war being used against defenseless civilians. Emergency Pod 17 carried the Peterson family. Sarah had attended their daughter's birthday party last month. Pod 23 held Dr. Martinez and his research team. Pod 31 contained the entire Wilson family, including 2 young children. One by one, the Zelkari hunted them down. Commander, Morrison said quietly, the main reactor is losing containment. We need to evacuate now. Sarah looked at her remaining crew. 8 people were still in the command center, trying to coordinate the evacuation. Through the damaged windows, she could see fires burning in the civilian sections. All personnel to Emergency Pod 50, Sarah ordered. Move now. As her crew rushed to the last escape pod, Sarah stayed behind at the communication station. She had one final duty to perform. She activated the quantum transmitter and began recording a message to Earth Command. Her hands shook as she worked the controls, partly from fear and partly from anger. Earth Command. This is Commander Sarah Chen of New Horizon Station. We are under attack by Zelkari forces. 12 heavy cruisers led by Overlord Thexkar. They are deliberately targeting civilian areas and emergency pods. An explosion rocked the command center. Sarah could hear metal tearing as the station began breaking apart. The Zelkari are not trying to force evacuation. They are committing genocide. They have murdered families, children, people who never threatened anyone. Sarah uploaded the tactical data from the battle to the transmission. Ship names, weapon signatures, everything that might help Earth understand what had happened here. Current survivor count is approximately 43 people in Emergency Bunker 7. The rest are dead, including children. They murdered children to send you a message about galactic politics. Another explosion, closer this time. Sarah could smell smoke and burning electronics. Tell Earth that we followed our orders. Tell them we did not start this fight. But tell them something else too. Sarah paused, thinking about the children's laughter she had heard in the corridors just days ago. About families who had come here to build something better. About good people who had died for the crime of being human in the wrong place. Tell them that the Zelkari need to learn what happens when you murder human children. Tell them that some lessons cost more than others. The transmission cut off as the command center lost power. Sarah ran toward the escape pod, but she never made it. A piece of burning metal fell from the ceiling and pinned her to the floor. She felt her ribs break and tasted blood in her mouth. Through the broken window, she could see the Zelkari ships moving away. Their work here was finished. 847 human beings had lived on New Horizon. Now only 43 remained alive, in the heavily shielded emergency bunker deep in the asteroid. Sarah closed her eyes and thought about Earth, hoping her message would reach the right people. Hoping someone would remember that the people who died here had names, families, dreams. The station reactor finally exploded, turning New Horizon into expanding gas and debris. The Zelkari fleet watched the destruction for a few minutes, then jumped to hyperspace. They left behind only wreckage and a message that would soon reach Earth. A message that would change everything. The message from New Horizon reached Earth Command 72 hours after the attack. A young communication officer named David Park was working the night shift when the priority signal came through the quantum relay system. At first, David thought it was a training exercise. The tactical data showed a mining station under attack by 12 alien warships. The voice recording from Commander Chen talked about murdered families and children. It seemed too horrible to be real. Then he ran the authentication codes. The message was genuine. David immediately called his supervisor, who called her supervisor, who called Admiral Janet Ross, head of Earth Defense Command. Within an hour, President Elena Rodriguez was sitting in the emergency briefing room beneath the Capitol, watching the final transmission from Sarah Chen. Current survivor count is approximately 43 people in Emergency Bunker 7. The rest are dead, including children. They murdered children to send you a message about galactic politics. The room was silent as Commander Chen's voice continued. When the transmission ended, President Rodriguez looked around the table at her advisors. Defense Minister Thomas Wright was pale. Intelligence Director Susan Kim was staring at her hands. How many people were on that station? The President asked. 847, Admiral Ross replied. Mostly civilians. Families of the mining workers. And how many survived? 43, according to the transmission. We've sent rescue ships, but it will take weeks to reach them. President Rodriguez stood and walked to the large display screen that showed a map of human space. New Horizon was a tiny dot on the edge of human territory, far from Earth's main colonies. Show me everything we know about the Zelkari Consortium. Intelligence Director Kim activated her files. Mid-level alien power. They control about 30 star systems in this region. Their military has approximately 400 ships of various sizes. They've been pressuring human colonies for the past 2 years, claiming we don't respect galactic traditions. What was our response to their previous threats? Diplomatic protests through the Galactic Council. Economic sanctions. Standard procedures for territorial disputes. President Rodriguez turned back to her advisors. Standard procedures. While they were planning to murder our children. Defense Minister Wright spoke carefully. Madam President, we need to consider our response carefully. The Zelkari have allies among other alien races. If we escalate too quickly, they murdered 800 people, the President interrupted. They deliberately targeted escape pods carrying children. What escalation are you worried about? Wright looked uncomfortable. A wider war with multiple alien species. Earth isn't ready for that kind of conflict. President Rodriguez was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked, Admiral Ross, where is Admiral Marcus Webb? Currently commanding the Jupiter Defense Fleet, Madam President. Get him here, now. Admiral Marcus Webb arrived at Earth 6 hours later. He was 60 years old, with gray hair and scars on his face from the border wars against the Krill pirates. Webb had never lost a battle in 30 years of military service, and he had a reputation for creative solutions to impossible problems. Webb sat across from President Rodriguez in her private office. Between them was a data pad containing all the information about New Horizon. "I've read the files," Webb said simply. "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to make sure this never happens again," Rodriguez replied. "I want the Zelkari to understand that murdering human civilians comes with consequences." "What level of consequences?" Rodriguez looked out her window toward the stars. "Complete consequences, Admiral. I don't want other alien races to wonder what happens when they target our families. I want them to know." Webb nodded slowly. "That will require significant resources, and it will change how the galaxy sees humanity." "Good," Rodriguez said. "Maybe it's time the galaxy saw us differently." The next morning, President Rodriguez addressed the Global Defense Council. Representatives from every human colony were present, either in person or by hologram. The session was broadcast to all human worlds. "Fellow citizens," Rodriguez began. 3 days ago, the Zelkari Consortium destroyed New Horizon mining station. They murdered 804 innocent people, including children, to send us a message about our place in the galaxy. The images from New Horizon appeared on screens around the chamber. Destroyed escape pods, burning civilian areas, the wreckage of the children's school. "The Zelkari wanted to teach us about consequences," Rodriguez continued. "We learned their lesson. Now we will teach them ours." The vote was unanimous. Every human colony, every representative, every voice, spoke as one. Complete authorization for military response. Admiral Webb was given unlimited resources and authority. Within hours, the entire Earth Defense Fleet was mobilizing. Not just the border patrol ships that most aliens knew about, but humanity's true military power. From hidden bases throughout the solar system, ships emerged that had been secret for decades. The heavy battlecruiser Yamamoto, armed with weapons that could crack planets. The stealth carrier Invisible Hand, capable of moving entire fighter squadrons without detection. The research vessel Prometheus, carrying humanity's most advanced and dangerous technologies. But Webb's most important meeting was in a facility deep beneath Earth's surface, where humanity's most classified projects were developed. Dr. Elizabeth Chen, no relation to the fallen commander, led the research team. "Show me what we have," Webb said. Dr. Chen activated a holographic display. Project Icarus uses directed gravitational waves to destabilize stellar fusion reactions. Essentially, it can make stars explode. Range? Unlimited, as long as we have quantum targeting data. Next, Project Prometheus. Planetary bombardment system using accelerated asteroid impacts. Can destroy all life on a world while leaving the planet intact. And Project Damocles? Dr. Chen hesitated. Quantum dissolution weapons. They unravel matter at the subatomic level. Anything hit by these weapons simply ceases to exist. Webb studied the data. Each weapon system represented years of research and testing. Each one was capable of ending entire civilizations. "Recommendation?" he asked. "For a standard military response, conventional weapons would be sufficient. For sending a message that will be remembered for centuries, any of these systems would be effective." Webb was quiet for several minutes, thinking about the images from New Horizon. About children's toys floating in space. About families murdered for the crime of existing in the wrong star system. "Prepare all systems," he said finally. "I want full operational capability within 1 week." "Admiral," Dr. Chen said carefully, "some of these weapons have never been used in actual combat. The effects might be more devastating than our simulations predict." Webb looked at her steadily. "Dr. Chen, they murdered children to make a political point. I want the effects to be devastating." As Webb left the research facility, he thought about the Zelkari fleet, heading home to their worlds. They probably thought the matter was finished. They had taught humanity a lesson about galactic politics, and could now return to their normal lives. They were wrong. Humanity was about to teach the galaxy a lesson of its own. About consequences. About what happened when you targeted human civilians. About why some lines should never be crossed. The hunt was about to begin. Admiral Marcus Webb stood in the war room beneath Earth Defense Command, looking at a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red dots marked every known Zelkari installation. There were more than the intelligence reports had suggested. "How did we get this information so quickly?" asked General Patricia Hall, Webb's chief of staff. The answer came from Director Susan Kim, head of Earth Intelligence Services. "We've had deep cover agents in Zelkari space for 15 years. The aliens assumed humans were too primitive for advanced espionage. They were wrong." Webb studied the display. "Show me their homeworld." The image changed to focus on a beautiful blue-green planet surrounded by 3 small moons. Floating cities sparkled like jewels above crystal gardens. Ancient spires reached toward the sky, representing thousands of years of Zelkari civilization. "Zelkar Prime," Kim continued. "Population 4.2 billion. The center of their government, military command, and culture. Every important Zelkari decision is made here. Military strength? Their home defense fleet has 120 ships. Combined with forces throughout their territory, they can field about 400 vessels total. Our analysts believe they will concentrate everything at their homeworld once they realize we're coming." Webb walked around the holographic display, studying the planet from different angles. The cities were beautiful, filled with gardens and artwork. It looked peaceful, like a world where children played and families lived normal lives, just like New Horizon had been. "What about their allies?" General Hall asked. "The Zelkari have trade agreements with several species, but no formal military alliances," Kim replied. "Most aliens view this as an internal matter between humans and Zelkari." Webb nodded. The galaxy was watching to see how humanity would respond to the massacre. Some species probably expected a diplomatic protest or economic sanctions. Others might think humans would send a small fleet to make a show of force. None of them understood what was actually coming. "Status of our fleet?" Webb asked. General Hall activated another display. 47 ships ready for immediate deployment. Heavy battle cruisers, stealth carriers, and support vessels. Plus the 3 special weapons platforms. "Crew readiness?" "Every sailor and marine is volunteering for this mission. We had to turn people away." Webb wasn't surprised. The images from New Horizon had been broadcast throughout human space. Every human had seen the destroyed escape pods, the burned children's areas, the wreckage of innocent lives. This was personal for everyone wearing a human uniform. "Launch time? 18 hours. The fleet will reach Zelkari space in 6 days. Webb turned to Kim. "I want continuous intelligence updates during our approach. Any changes in their military positions, any communications we intercept, anything that might affect our plans." "Understood, Admiral." As the meeting ended, Webb remained in the war room, studying the holographic display of Zelkar Prime. Dr. Elizabeth Chen entered a few minutes later, carrying a secure data pad. "Admiral, final specifications for the special weapons systems." Webb took the pad and reviewed the technical data. Project Damocles was ready for deployment. 3 ships carrying quantum dissolution weapons that could unmake matter at the molecular level. The weapons had been tested on uninhabited asteroids, but never on anything as large as a planet. "Estimated time for complete planetary dissolution?" Webb asked. "Approximately 47 minutes, depending on the planet's mass and composition. The process is irreversible once it begins." Webb was quiet for a moment, thinking about the children who had died at New Horizon, about families murdered to make a political point, about the survivors still hiding in that emergency bunker, waiting for rescue. "Doctor, do you have children?" "2 daughters, Chen replied. "Ages 8 and 12. If aliens attacked their school and murdered them to send a message to humanity, what would you want done to those aliens?" Chen met his eyes. "I would want them to suffer consequences that no one would ever forget." Webb handed back the data pad. "Then we understand each other." 6 days later, the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zelkar system. Admiral Webb stood on the bridge of his flagship, the heavy battlecruiser Retribution, watching the tactical displays update with enemy positions. "Contact," reported Commander Lisa Santos from the sensor station. 412 Zelkari ships in defensive formation around their homeworld. Webb wasn't surprised. The Zelkari had detected the approaching human fleet and called in every available ship. It was an impressive force, nearly 10 times larger than the human expedition. "Open communications," Webb ordered. The face of Overlord Thexkar appeared on the main screen. The alien looked confident, surrounded by displays showing his overwhelming numerical advantage. "Admiral Webb," Thexkar said, "I know your name and reputation. You are a capable commander, but you have made a serious error. You bring 47 ships against 400. This is not courage. This is stupidity." "Overlord Thexkar," Webb replied calmly, "you are correct that I know the odds. But you don't understand what you're facing." Thexkar's eyes narrowed. "I am facing humans who are angry about losing a minor mining station. You think your anger gives you strength, but it only makes you reckless. You murdered 804 innocent people," Webb said, "including children. You did this to send a message about power and consequences. We received your message. Then you know you should retreat while you still can." Webb looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. They were calm, professional, ready for what was coming. Behind him, 3 special weapons ships waited for his orders. "Overlord," Webb said quietly, "you wanted to teach humanity about consequences. Now we're going to teach the galaxy about what happens when you murder human children." Thexkar laughed. "You have courage, Admiral. But courage is not enough. My fleet will destroy you. And then we will destroy every human colony in this region. Your kind will learn to respect established powers." Webb's expression didn't change. "You have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally and submit to human justice for war crimes against civilian populations. After that, we implement total response protocols." "Total response?" Thexkar seemed amused. "What does that mean?" "It means the complete elimination of your ability to ever threaten human civilians again." Thexkar's laughter echoed through the communication channel. "Admiral Webb, you are either very brave or completely insane." Webb looked directly at the alien who had ordered the massacre of New Horizon, who had targeted escape pods carrying children, who thought murdering families was an acceptable way to make political points. "Overlord Thexkar," Webb said calmly, "I'm human. That's both." The communication ended. Around him, Webb's crew prepared for battle. In space nearby, the Zelkari fleet moved into attack formation, confident in their numerical superiority. None of them understood that this wasn't going to be a conventional battle. This was going to be a demonstration. 1 hour had passed since Admiral Webb's ultimatum. The Zelkari fleet remained in defensive formation around their homeworld, confident in their numerical advantage. Overlord Thexkar had not responded to the surrender demand. "All ships, commence attack pattern Alpha." Webb ordered from the bridge of the Retribution. The human fleet moved forward at battle speed. 47 ships against 412. To any observer, it looked like humanity was about to commit suicide. The Zelkari opened fire first. Energy beams filled space with deadly light as hundreds of weapons targeted the advancing human ships. But something was wrong with their targeting systems. The human vessels moved in patterns that seemed impossible, dodging attacks that should have destroyed them. "How are they doing that?" Thexkar demanded from his command ship. His tactical officer looked confused. "Their ships are reacting faster than our computers can target them. It's like they know where we're going to shoot before we fire." The truth was simpler. Human artificial intelligence systems had been designed by a species that spent thousands of years fighting wars against itself. Every tactical situation, every possible combat scenario had been programmed and tested. The human ships weren't just faster than Zelkari targeting computers. They were smarter. The first Zelkari cruiser exploded 12 minutes into the battle. Then another. The human fleet cut through enemy formations like a sword through paper, their weapons finding weak points in Zelkari shields with deadly precision. "Impossible," Thexkar whispered as he watched his forces take heavy casualties. The humans were achieving kill ratios that defied everything he understood about space combat. But Admiral Webb wasn't watching the space battle. His attention was focused on 3 unmarked ships that had quietly moved into position around Zelkar Prime. Ships that carried humanity's most terrible secret. "Admiral," Commander Santos reported, "the special weapons platforms are in position." Webb activated his personal communication channel to the 3 ships. "This is Admiral Webb. You are authorized to commence Project Damocles on my command." On the surface of Zelkar Prime, billions of Zelkari watched the space battle through their communication networks. They saw their powerful fleet fighting bravely against the human invaders. Some were worried, but most believed their numerical advantage would win the day. They didn't know they were already dead. Webb opened a communication channel to broadcast on all frequencies throughout the galaxy. His message would reach every species, every government, every military command in known space. "This is Admiral Marcus Webb of the Earth Defense Fleet. We are broadcasting to all civilized species. 6 days ago, Zelkari forces attacked and destroyed New Horizon mining station. 804 innocent human civilians were murdered, including children, to make a political statement about galactic power structures." The broadcast continued as the space battle raged around Zelkar Prime. Human ships continued their deadly dance, destroying Zelkari vessels with terrifying efficiency. The Zelkari wanted to teach humanity about consequences. They wanted to show us what happens when newer species don't respect established powers. We learned their lesson. Webb paused, looking at the tactical display. His fleet was winning the space battle, but that wasn't the real message he was sending. "Now we will teach the galaxy what happens when you murder human children." Webb activated his command channel to the special weapons platforms. "All Damocles units, you are authorized to fire." 3 quantum dissolution beams struck Zelkar Prime simultaneously. The weapons were invisible to normal sensors, but their effects were immediately obvious. Where the beams touched the planet's surface, matter simply stopped existing. The dissolution spread outward from the impact points like ripples in a pond. The beautiful crystal cities began to unravel at the molecular level. Ancient spires that had stood for thousands of years dissolved into nothing. The floating gardens scattered like dust in the solar wind. On his command ship, Overlord Thexkar watched in horror as his homeworld began to disappear. "What have you done?" he transmitted to Webb. "What you taught us to do," Webb replied calmly. "Send a message." The dissolution process accelerated. Entire continents broke apart as the planet's structure became unstable. Oceans boiled away into space. The 3 moons, caught in the expanding quantum field, simply ceased to exist. Across the galaxy, millions of beings watched the broadcast as Zelkar Prime died. The planet that had been home to billions of people, the center of an ancient civilization, the heart of the Zelkari Consortium, was being unmade by human weapons. It took 47 minutes for the process to complete. When it was finished, there was nothing left where Zelkar Prime had been. No debris. No radiation signature. No evidence that a world had ever existed in that location. The Zelkari fleet stopped fighting. Their ships drifted in space as their crews tried to understand what they had just witnessed. Their homeworld, their families, their entire civilization had been erased from existence. Admiral Webb's voice continued the galactic broadcast. "Let this be understood by every species in the galaxy. Humans are not the newcomers you can push around. We are not weak because we prefer peace. We are not your lesson to teach." The human fleet began moving away from the battle zone, their mission complete. Behind them, the surviving Zelkari ships made no attempt to follow or attack. Any species that targets human civilians, that murders human families, that thinks our children are acceptable casualties for political statements, will face the same fate as Zelkar Prime. This is not a threat. This is a promise. The broadcast ended. Throughout the galaxy, alien governments held emergency meetings. Species that had been planning to challenge human expansion suddenly reconsidered their policies. The Galactic Council urgently petitioned Earth for immediate peace negotiations. No one had expected humanity to possess weapons that could destroy entire planets. More importantly, no one had expected them to actually use such weapons in response to what many aliens considered a minor territorial dispute. They had misunderstood something fundamental about human nature. Humans did not view the murder of children as a minor issue. 2 weeks later, the rescue fleet reached New Horizon. 43 survivors were found alive in the emergency bunker, just as Commander Sarah Chen had reported in her final transmission. They were brought home to Earth as heroes. Admiral Webb retired immediately after the mission, refusing all awards and honors. When reporters asked him about the destruction of Zelkar Prime, he simply said, "They attacked our children." What did they expect? A memorial was built in Earth orbit, visible to every ship approaching the home system. It listed the names of all 804 people who died at New Horizon. The inscription read, "To those who fell at New Horizon, your deaths were not in vain. No one will ever again mistake human compassion for human weakness." President Rodriguez addressed the Galactic Council 1 month later. "Humanity desires peace with all species. We want to trade, explore, and build a better galaxy together. But understand this clearly. We will never again allow anyone to target our civilians without consequences." The galaxy listened carefully. They had learned that humans were more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Not because they were naturally violent, but because they would do absolutely anything to protect their own. In the years that followed, no alien species ever attacked human civilians. The lesson of Zelkar Prime was taught once, but remembered forever. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy. Not as newcomers begging for respect, but as a people who would defend their families with total commitment. Some lessons only need to be taught once,